Right. So what we have discussed about data definition language, right? So data definition language where we have to define the data like creation, alter, command, drop, truncate, rename, all that. This is point number one. Second is called DML, which is stands for data manipulation language. This is what it was. So in this manipulation language, usually there are few commands which normally we have to use. The first one is called insert. First one is called insert. Second one will be called as update. Third one is called delete. Fourth one is called match, and as well as call. Right. So these are the few different commands which will be there on data manipulation language. So the first one is to define, because if you have a data table and data sets are there. So first of all, we need to have an option to create, alter, truncate, rename, all that. So that is the basic commands which normally anyone requires and anyone wants. That is point number one to be noted. Second is that we have to manipulate the data. Why is this manipulation required? Manipulation will be required by us. Depends on the need, what exactly we have, right? So depends on that, because for example, there was a data set which was taken by us, wherein we want to insert some kind of rows to the existing table, right? So because there are different columns. Let's say, for example, if you have taken this furniture price or something like, or else examination, salaries, for example, right? So salaries is what we have taken here. For example, there was the number somewhere around 3,756, right? This is what the number we have taken. You don't see any changes in the column. Why? Because column remains constant in the data set. What was that column here? Column is what year is the first one. Second, what kind of experience level that person is having, what kind of employment type they have, followed by the kind of job title, salary, right? In terms of the currency of what we are issuing the salary, right? So what will be the conversion into US dollars, right? So employee residence, everything. So this is the standard column which normally you will be having. But apart from this, what is required? For example, in future, you may be required to add different rows. For example, as far as this present data itself is concerned, this is 3,756 is what the number. So you may require to add few employees to the existing ones. What is that you want to add now? You want to add the rows to the existing ones. 3,756, you want to add the new rows to the existing data table is what is required, and it is what generally we need it. So if that was the case, what is that we have to do now? What is that we have to do is that this is what generally we use, right? Insert, update, delete, merge, call, all these things will be used for that, right? So the first one is called insert, right? So insert is the one which will be used to how to insert rows into the table. You can write down.
Okay. Just only for the rows, right?
Sorry?
Only for the rows.
Yeah, it is only for the rows.
Okay. Done, sir.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is for rows actually, right? So whatever the rows we want to add and all everything, so those rows can be added here. That is what generally we have to do. So insert means how to insert the rows into the existing table is what generally we do under data manipulation. This is point number one. How to insert rows into the table is what we have to do first. This is first point. Second is update. Means update is the one where we want to update the values, because whatever the existing values in the data set we have, if you want to update the values to the existing data set, what we have taken as an example, or the work, what is that we are going to do. So here there is an option for update, which normally we have. So this is what generally we call it as update stands for. So how to update the values, because there are some values which was already given. Okay, there are some values which was already given. Now what we want to do, we want to update some values to the existing table, right? Because there was existing values were given here, where we want to update the values to the existing table of the data sets what we have taken. This is where generally this update is what generally it is being used. Now the third one is called delete, means how to delete the tables or how to delete the data, because there is some unnecessary information which is not required. Unnecessary, I don't say it is unnecessary, but which is not required. The required information is needed. Apart from that, there is an additional data which is required, so but is not something needed for us to work. For example, right, what is that we have to do now? We want to delete the data. So for that, we need to use an option called delete. Understood? Clear? Right?
Yes.
We want to delete the data. So for that, the kind of command, what is that we use under manipulation language is called delete. Next, for example, if you want to merge the rows, how to merge the rows to the existing data, whatever the data we have taken, because there are a couple of rows were there, where if you want to merge the rows and all everything, this is what generally we have to do it. Next, last but not least, call means how to call the data. Right, so calling the data from the external sources, because there are different sources are available. Data is available from the different sources and all, where we have to call the data. Either that could be a PNG file. PNG file means what we call PNG is a image file, I can say, right? PNG is an
Yeah.
image file you can see, or else .csv file means whatever the Excel sheet files and all everything is called generally called .csv files, where if you want to call the data from an external sources, because external connect is required. So for example, when we are working on the retail operations, right? So wherein we have customer data which is available with us, wherein we are working on the customer data. So whenever we are working on the customer data, let's say that there are three different shops, right? Three different retail store, where they have stock position in three different stores has three different sizes of the stock. Now, for example, we don't have a centralized point, right? So centralized repository system we don't have, right? So that is what generally it is, right? So centralized position, centralized system is not available with us. What is that we have to do now? We have to create a centralized repository system where we have to call the data from the external sources. This is where generally database connect is required. Different external servers and as well as external databases is what we have to connect with. Provided if we have an access for that, what is required? A developer has to write an API. What is API stands for? Application Programming Interface. Understood?
Mhm.
I mean, application means, for
Yes.
example, you are booking the flight ticket, right? So if
Mhm.
you want to book the flight ticket, what is that you do? You go to the travel portal, travel website, whichever the travel, whoever is issuing tickets and all, you go to the travel agent website, and you select the date, which date you want to travel, and is it an economy class or a business class? Prior to that, which airlines you want to choose, from which location, from where you want to travel, right? And all that. So that the destination point, everything will be decided based on that. You book the ticket. Am I right? You book the ticket. Now, here is my question. Being a travel agent, he is an intermediary, right? So how
Mhm.
he got the data of the flight details of different airlines? How they got it? For example, there could be Lufthansa Airlines, right? So it could be maybe Jet Airways, it could be, right? It could be Malaysian Airlines, right? So different airlines we have, right? Now, how a travel agent has got all the flight details about the date of the travel date, right? So what is the seating capacity of the flight? How they got all the information?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
How
they
they
will
how
get
you
all
got
information.
Yeah, how they got, because travel agent is an intermediary there, right? He's an
Yeah,
intermediary who is providing an opportunity to book the tickets through his travel website. He is not the
exactly.
owner, right? So because there are
Mm-hmm.
airlines which are different airlines for different countries, different countries it connects. Either it could be domestic or international airlines, all that. So how you got this? For that reason, normally developers will write an API, which is called
Mm-hmm.
application programming interface. We call it as. So through application programming interface, what we can do, we can access the data from there. Understand?
Okay.
Right? So you can access the data of the details of the flight details, like what is the number of the flight, right? So from where to where it will travel, and do you have the seating capacity? What is the seating capacity there? At the same time, you also can choose the type of seat you want to book. At the same time, on which date you want to book. All these, how can you do all that? There is an
Mm-hmm.
API which was written by the developer. From there onwards, you call the data. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're accessing the data. For that, there is what we call it as API, which is called application programming interface, is what generally we use. This is what generally we call it as call. So how to call the data is required. So of course, application programming interfaces are different, but this is different. That's a different thing altogether. It's application. So here, what is that we want to do is we want to call the data. So this is where generally this is being used for, right? So manipulations and all. So insert is to insert the rows, update is to update the values, delete is to delete the row, delete the value, delete the rows and all that. At the same time, merge the rows, call, how to call the data from an external sources. This is all we are required for data manipulation, right? So data definition language, data manipulation language, these are the two major ones. Whenever we are learning SQL, these two are important, right? Third point, one of the major thing is about data query language. Data query language where we use an option called select, right? So whatever you can write down all the commands use
Mm-hmm.
this select command, because if you want to do something, you have to select, right? Without selection, you can't do anything, right? For example, if you want to insert the data, what is that you have to do first? You have to select the data, right?
To select
You
it.
want to update it, you want to select the data. If you want to delete some values to the existing ones or the rows, you want to select the data. So selection is mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the definition language, whatever the DDLs are we talking about, whatever the DMLs are we talking about, for everything, what is that we have to do? Primary thing is what we have
To
to
select.
select. So select is a command which is comes under DQL, which is called data query language.
Mm-hmm.
Understood? Right.
Yes.
Next is about DCL, which is called data control language. The kind of commands which are available here is called two. One is grant, second is revoke. One is grant, second is revoke. Means how to grant permission. For example, if you want to connect to the external servers, right? How to grant the permission, how permissions to be granted, that is required. Next, for
Mm-hmm.
example, how to revoke. For example, there is some information which was already deleted, right? How to revoke the information, how to revoke the data. This is also essentially required.
Mm-hmm.
Understood? Clear? Right? So data control language will be used for two different things. One is grant, second is revoke. Grant means how to grant the permission. Second is revoke means how to revoke the data. For example, there is some data which was deleted where we want to revoke the data for some different reasons we want to revoke. So what is that we have to do? Data control language is being used. But this data control language, whatever the DCL commands is being used by the administrators. Notice this will be used by the admin people. People
Mm-hmm.
whoever is working on administrator, database administrators will be there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those database administrators will use. So DCL is what we don't discuss with. because granting permissions, for that you need to have in server access, right? All these things required. At the same time, how to, so this part we don't use, usually we don't do that, right? So query language, this is all relating to admin part. But the three things we do, we use data definition language, we do data manipulation language is being used. At the same time, data query languages will also be used. For that, generally we use the kind of tool, what is that we use for SQL and all everything is called SQL Workbench, right? So one is we have MySQL Workbench is there. So that can be installed, and whatever the data you want to have, you can do all that. So here you can see MySQL Workbench is available. So here we want to use whatever the data to be updated, right? So all these things can be used using this MySQL Workbench. So this is what generally the one which normally we use. Okay. So about this SQL Workbench and all everything that we are going to discuss in tomorrow session, how it looks like, right? What are the options are available, how to do it, how to do the select command. All these things will be done from tomorrow onwards.
Okay, this is the phase when we open the SQL, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
It is very simple. I'll tell you. I'll tell you in Google how to select this and how to download that. I will explain tomorrow. Tomorrow, the complete
Okay.
explanation about how to install this.
Okay.
Okay. And the basic structure of MySQL Workbench will be explained tomorrow. You
Sure,
don't
sure.
need it. Right, Abid?
Okay, sir. Thank you
See
so
you
much.
then. Bye.
Okay. Thank you for information. This is a
Thank,
very knowledgeable class for today.
thank you.
I'll just revise all those things and
Please, please.
keep in my mind.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Right,
Thank you so
Abid.
much.
See you then. Bye.